know, in many of my colleagues' constituencies, 480 students in the whole school district, but a number of schools that really have to survive. We've got Cayucurt, which is K-12, Tarsus, K-12, Zabalas, K-12, Gold River has both an elementary and a secondary school. So different environments in different schools, Madam Speaker, in different school districts. So, but I'd like to quote from some of the teachers who got in touch with me from each of those districts. So I have here from one teacher in school district 72, which is mentioned Campbell River. I'm currently teaching grade 7 and 9 math and science in a middle school. The average class has 28 students with a minimum of 7 1701 designated students. This is just the students that meet the governmental guidelines for designation. Many others have learning or behavioural issues but do not meet these guidelines. With this type of classroom composition, not all students get the one-on-one help they need and deserve. I'm sure the Minister of Agriculture would recognise this. So who loses out here? The kids, of course. In all my planning, student needs are number one in my mind. Yet I'm constantly put in a situation of not being able to meet the needs of all the students in my class. This is stressful. We are creating a situation where kids can't be successful, yet we pass them on to the next year in hopes it will be better. And the teacher goes on, the teacher says, money cannot be the bottom line. Our kids are worth more than that. Madam Speaker, our kids are worth more than that. And another one from School District 72, another teacher who is very concerned, says, to the government, you say we just announced the hiring of more teaching assistants to fill the gap and give the students more individual attention. Problem solved, be quiet, go home. While I welcome new funding for EAs because it will allow me to better support students, EAs are not teachers. They do not write IEPs, individualised education plans, which have become incredibly cumbersome documents under this Liberal government. They don't do screening tests, complete ministry checklists to see if students qualify for funding, and so on. In short, while your government gives great lip service to supporting education and students, the actions tell a really different tale. So, Madam Speaker, I have another from School District 84. As I mentioned, that is the West Coast, which is the West Coast, 480 students, and this teacher has worked in a number of schools over in the West Coast. And I quote, 6 of the students in the class she was teaching, the grade 3 class, 6 of the students were at least a year behind their grade level. 10 students in the class were First Nations, 1 student is autistic, another student is FAS, fetal alcohol syndrome, and severe behaviour problem. 1 child has cerebral palsy. Many of the students were being pulled out for 15-minute remedial sessions, so they missed vital lesson and classroom help. They also disrupted the class with continual leaving and returning to the classroom. The First Nations students collectively received only 1.5 hours a week of support, not nearly enough. The autistic child and the behaviour problem child had to share an aide, which meant one was often left unattended. The need was so great in this classroom, I was unable to maintain the standard of teaching I was accustomed to. And the teacher goes on, I'm very proud of my union for standing up and forcing the necessary change so drastically needed. It's beyond me how the leaders of this province, this government that's been in power for 12 years, I add, how the leaders of this province can have so little regard for the children of our future and the very people who are put in charge of shaping them. Madam Speaker, I think this is the crux of this. These are the children who are going to be, in 15, 20, 25 years' time, hopefully leading this province. And here we are, selling them short because this government refuses to allow proper negotiations to take place, by imposing contracts, by looking at the classrooms and saying, that's it, we are saying what can be. I continue, Madam Speaker. I'm going to quote just one more letter here. This is from School District 85 in the North Island. I'm a primary teacher. I've worked with 5 to 8-year-olds for the past 21 years, and I have seen what stress and going without support does to an individual and to a class of students. I have at times felt like I'm running a 3-ring circus. I've been emotionally drained and exhausted by the end of the day. I've taught children who fall between the guidelines for designation, whose behaviour leaves you distressed and without support. I've been in a classroom of children who suffered with anxiety attacks and tummy aches over and over again because of their reaction to another child's severe behaviour. So it goes on, Madam Speaker, and I'm sure that the Minister for Agriculture, as I say, will recognise this. And if I might quote one more from his constituency, School District 72, perhaps a colleague that he may have known, who talks about a classroom physically too small for us, with so many, we have in this classroom one student with serious learning problems with a medical condition, a student who takes medication for ADHD, another who is in the process of medical investigation. Madam Speaker, we all want to see inclusion, we all believe in inclusion, but what we are seeing here are teachers set up to fail and the system set up to fail. We are seeing stresses that are unbearable. We're seeing teachers who just cannot do the job that they are supposed to do, which is provide education, which is to impart knowledge, to share knowledge, to create that environment where children want to learn, where they want to grasp onto things, where they want to find out what they can do and how to use their abilities. Being a teacher is quite an amazing thing. I have huge respect for teachers. I would hope that everybody in this house has respect for teachers. To be able to do that with children, to be able to impart that knowledge and to share that knowledge, they're being sold short, Madam Teacher. I've been quoting here from people who are dealing with the designated students who have some problem that they have been assessed for. Madam Speaker, I have to note that not all students are designated. We have some students who have fetal alcohol syndrome, which is a terrible thing that young children have. It is something that seems to be growing rather than diminishing, but so many students aren't actually assessed for this. Students who do not have access to assessment aren't assessed for it. They live outside an area where there is an assessment, and they go undiagnosed, unassessed. They don't get those supports even though they need them. They have huge problems with attention, with learning, with cognitive abilities, and yet they're not getting the support. Madam Speaker, this is a whole extra texture to many of these teachers' concerns. I wanted to just quickly switch to School District 85. I spoke the other day in the legislature about an Aboriginal enhancement agreement on education that was being signed there. Great fanfare. It was in the big house at Fort Rupert. It was a wonderful celebration. I heard from many people who were there what a fantastic celebration it was. As I mentioned, the Minister of Education was going to be there, and he was there. It was the chance to look at what this school district does and what the teachers do for First Nations education, to make sure that everybody was working together. Everybody's working together for the best interests of the community and for the kids, for the parents and for the schools. That we've had for many years Aboriginal First Nations culture imbued in the education system there, imbued in the classroom learning. This was taking it to the next stage, bringing it into the community, making sure there was that real integration. So they say that the minister was there. And this hasn't gone down very well with some of the teachers. And I'd just like to quote from one teacher who has been working in the North Island for a very long time, has a great track record there and is very well respected. And she says, I was one of the people called down to the fire and acknowledged by Caleb Child at the ceremony for the signing of the Aboriginal Enhancement Agreement at the Fort Rupert Big House. The minister, I won't quote him, Minister, you were dancing behind our superintendent, Scott Benwell, when he spoke with me during the friendship dance immediately after the signed agreement. You looked my way as you danced past me and smiled. The words you spoke in the Big House do not feel synonymous with the forced legislation teachers are facing with Bill 22. As a teacher in British Columbia right now, I do not feel valued, respected, important or cared about. These are the qualities and attributes I expect from myself as a teacher, and these are the qualities and attributes I'm sure I share with my students. And from one other teacher, Madam Speaker, who was also at the ceremony, who says, I'm appalled that the minister had the nerve to come to Port Hardy and ride in the canoe as if he really had anything productive to do with the enhancement agreement that's being signed. If he was truly willing to do something positive for the First Nations students we serve, he would be enhancing their education by providing us with the teachers and the support staff necessary to meet their needs. We have teachers, support staff, administrators, district staff and board members who work hard in this district to support the educational needs in our schools. We need the government to do the same thing. Madam Speaker, as I mentioned, School District 85 has a very large Aboriginal population, and we keep talking about how we need to ensure that Aboriginal students complete school, not that they just pass through the grade year after year after year and then get a leaving certificate, but that they graduate, that they can participate, they can go on to post-secondary education. Madam Speaker, if this is the tenor of the government's approach to a public education system, that it is not looking at it in a realistic way, that it is not willing to put the resources necessary to support these teachers by providing these for school districts where there are a lot of First Nation students and for all school districts, Madam Speaker, the government's just giving up on them. It's just saying, oh, well, yeah, we're fine, we're okay, our friends are okay, but it really doesn't matter. We don't care about Aboriginal kids, we don't care about other kids, we really don't care about the future of this province because, Madam Speaker, as I said before, public education is a great equaliser. It is what allows us to have a good, strong province. It is unfortunate, Madam Speaker, that my time is running out. I wanted to touch, and will touch on briefly, the other context of this legislation, Madam Speaker, and that is the reality that this government all too often tries to ignore, the reality that we have had 11 years of a BC Liberal government, 11 years in which a commitment to education has been shown to be, how to find the parliamentary language. I'll put it nice, it has shown to be a joke. This government is clearly not committed to public education, does not see that it is important, has systemically cut funding to public education. And while we hear time and again, oh, it's the highest funding, highest per pupil funding, highest per pupil funding, what this government ignores is that, as I was mentioning earlier, it has downloaded all the costs on school districts. The MSP, the carbon neutrality, and so on and so on and so on. It's frozen capital programs, Madam Speaker. School districts are stressed. I represent a riding that is largely rural. One of the harshest things the government did, this was when the Premier was the Minister for Education, and that was to establish a per pupil funding system for paying for education, Madam Speaker. That has penalised rural schools time and time and time again. It has said to the rural education system, you don't count. If you don't have enough students, forget it. Even though it is a long boat ride away to the nearest school, Echo Bay. There is no school close to Echo Bay. People had to up and move out of their community, Madam Speaker, to live in another community simply so their kids could go to school.